interest in what I read lately. Well, I was reading today a copy of the New York Times. And I was really interested to read in there about Barack Obama's friends from Chicago. Turns out, one of his earliest supporters is a man who, according to the New York Times, was a domestic terrorist and part of a group that, quote, launched a campaign of bombings that would target the Pentagon and the U.S. Capitol.
And Sarah Palin, Mr. Begala, listen, this has been just below the radar for some time now. It's not entirely clear how close their association is. Obama has condemned those acts at that time. Wouldn't it have been wiser for him, however, to get at that much earlier than now, 30 days before the election?
Well, no, Obama was asked about this in a debate in the primaries with Hillary Clinton sitting there. George Stephanopoulos of ABC asked him about it. He answered it. He pointed out that the despicable acts that got committed were committed when apparently Barack Obama was 8 years old. And I think Governor Palin here is making a strategic mistake. This guilt by association path is going to be trouble ultimately for the McCain campaign. You know, you can go back. I've written a book about McCain. I had a dozen researchers go through him. I didn't even put this in the book, but John McCain sat on the board of a very right-wing organization. It was the U.S. Council for World Freedom. It was chaired by a guy named John Singlaub, who wound up involved in the Iran-Contra scandal. It was an ultra-conservative right-wing group. The Anti-Defamation League in 1981, when McCain was on the board, said this about this organization. It was affiliated with the World Anti-Communist League, the parent organization, which ADL said has increasingly become a gathering place, a forum, a point of contact for extremists, racists, and anti-Semites. Now, that's not John McCain. I don't think he is that. But you know, the problem is that a lot of people know John McCain's record better than Governor Palin, and he does not want to play guilt by association, or this thing will blow up in his face.
Mr. Murphy, one of the defenders of William Ayers in Chicago is Rich Daley, the six-term mayor of the city, who has said that, in fact, Mr. Ayers has been very helpful on school issues. Isn't that going to be an effective counterstrike against anything that the McCain people try to do here?
Maybe, but Ayers has kind of gotten off a little easy in Chicago. A lot of people say what a good guy is. The problem is the one person who hasn't really condemned William Ayers enough is William Ayers. And I think that's a real problem. And Obama, well, he's clearly not the same. He still also has pulled his punches, I think, a little bit about it. And this will be a kerfuffle. It'll do a little damage to Obama. But fundamentally, this campaign is going to be about the economy. Yeah. So Obama will take some damage on this. But then it's going to pivot back to real life. And that's where I think McCain has to connect.
That's not even in the distant future. In fact, the Obama campaign is launching a preemptive strike tomorrow with this ad in which they're talking about the subjects that you just raised, the economy, the economy, the economy. Let's share that.
750,000 jobs lost this year. Our financial system in turmoil. And John McCain, erratic in the crisis, out of touch on the economy. No wonder his campaign wants to change the subject, turn the page on the financial crisis by launching dishonest, dishonorable assaults against Barack Obama. Struggling families can't turn the page on this economy, and we can't afford another president who's this out of touch.
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Mr. Murphy, it seems to me that one of the things that's happened in the last 10 days or so is that this race has been crystallized in a way about Main Street versus Wall Street, given all the confusion about the bailout and everything else. And Main Street will always be in favor of the Democrats.
Yeah, I'm not sure that should be accepted as a premise by the McCain campaign. I think they have to prosecute that all the way. That's a smart ad by Obama. If McCain lets him get away with that, he's going to have trouble. I think the Obama campaign wants to run economy versus character. I think what McCain ought to pivot to is, one, connect himself to middle-class worries and squeezes. He is a reformer who's going to change the way Washington works. That's built into his DNA. And second, bring up the issue of the concept of a runaway liberal one-party train here in Washington. You know, just no checks and balances at all. McCain, a partisan can-do pragmatist, versus the idea that everything in this town being run by the Democrats with no restraint, no balance, no control. And that'll affect the economy in a bad way. I think that's a better prosecution for the McCain campaign than these character attacks or these dubious association, you know, background issues in Obama. They're hurt him, but I don't think that's the key when everybody in the country, at least the swing voters, are going to control the election, are very much worried about the economy. It's where all the interest, focus, and worry is.
Should the Obama campaign just be driving the economy as hard as it possibly can between now and November 4th?
Well, they should, but of course I believe in counterpunching too. I mean, I don't like just, there's this myth in the Democratic Party that it should be rapid response. Why don't we have better rapid response? How about rapid attack, right? How about ads like that show the President of the United States, who has a job approval rating of 26, standing with John McCain. And this is where McCain has made a huge strategic error. He should have run McCain 1.0 that he ran when Murphy was running his campaign in 2000, which was stridently anti-Bush. It's like when the country loved Bush, McCain hated him. Now the country hates Bush, McCain loves him. And it's hard in the last 30 days to reinvent yourself as someone who knows something about the economy and will be a break with the past. And that's the problem. People, never have I seen a mood for change like this. And Obama is change incarnate. And, McCain just looks like status quo incarnate.
I can't let Paul totally get away with that.
With
John
praising
McCain
you?
is very, well, no, I'll take that anytime, thank you. But the fact is that John McCain is very different from President Bush on a lot of issues, be it climate change, be it, campaign reform, campaign finance reform. You look at any piece the last 5 years, John McCain's been the quarterback. And that needs to be put in the center here for the close of the campaign. The McCain is a guy who can get things done in Washington of two parties. He can provide balance as opposed to a runaway Democratic train.
I don't want the two of you to get away without sharing with you some excerpts from the vice presidential debate the other night and then getting your reaction to it. Let's begin with Governor Palin and a couple of the things that she had to say, and then we'll hear from Senator Joe Biden.
Say it ain't so, Joe. There you go again, pointing backwards again, though. You prefaced your whole comment with the Bush administration. Now, doggone it, let's look ahead and tell Americans what we have to plan to do for them in the future. Let's commit ourselves, just everyday American people, Joe Sixpack, hockey moms across the nation. I think we need to band together and say, never again. Never will we be exploited and taken advantage of again.
And now let's hear from Senator Joe Biden, who late in the debate took on the whole issue about, is John McCain, in fact, a maverick in Washington?
He has not been a maverick in providing health care for people. He has voted against. He voted against including another 3.6 million children in coverage of the existing health care plan when he voted in the United States Senate. He's not been a maverick when it comes to education. He has not supported tax cuts and significant changes for people being able to send their kids to college. He's not been a maverick on the war. He's not been a maverick on virtually anything that generally affects the things that people really talk about around their kitchen table.
Mike Murphy, let's begin with Governor Palin, if we can. I don't think there's any question of the fact that she probably helped her own self-image. But did she move anybody across the aisle, and did she demonstrate to this country that she's qualified to be one heartbeat away from the presidency?
I don't think the vice presidential debate, despite all the interest, had a lot of attention. I guarantee you that backstage, both campaign managers were there with a bottle of whiskey and a revolver, terrified. Because you had two Titan-class gaff machines out there, either of whom could have done a lot of damage, and neither did. So I think now it goes back to the main event. So I think Sarah Palin, who was in trouble before, and I have to admit I'm a Republican who's been somewhat critical of the strategy of that choice, simply because for all her attributes and charm, which there's a lot of, she was, in my view anyway, and I've been wrong before, a base pick. And I think it's not a base Republican election. But I think she did do herself, and going forward, she's credentialed enough now to go out there and make a middle-class mom economic argument where she can do some help for the ticket. But fundamentally, we're back to the main event Tuesday night with the two presidential candidates. That's where the race will be decided.
Sarah Palin make you nervous in any way as an opponent in this 30 days that we have to go?
George W. Bush used to say he was always advantaged when people misunderestimated him. And I think that's part of what some of the left did with Governor Palin. Richard Nixon said this when the Democrats destroyed Spiro Agnew, and he went on to win that election in 1968. Nixon later said, you don't shoot down in presidential politics. And watch Joe Biden in that debate. I thought he was great because he shot up. He was neither patronizing toward the governor of Alaska nor bullying. He focused his fire on John McCain. Contrast that with Governor Palin, who did a good job of rehabilitating her own image, but there were lots of moments where she was throwing John McCain under the bus. It looked to me like this was a candidate who thinks this race may be over, and she's starting to run in 2012, because she did not do a very effective job of attacking Barack Obama or defending John McCain. She did quite a good job of rehabilitating Sarah Palin.
I've got to